So now I guess we can move on to talking about what individuals can do on a personal level to sort of combat this or
There's so much
yeah. Hmm.
there's so much that individuals can do.
Okay.
Um, I'm going to start with India because I live and work out of India. But if you go on Bangalore, where I live, if you take a car ride
Yeah.
and you trip about the 2 hours or 3 hours that it takes from point A to B,
Yeah.
count the number of cars which have only a single individual in them.
Mm.
So potentially you could have 1/5 the traffic.
Mm.
You have all sorts of apps for getting food delivered at all weird hours of the night. You don't have an app that will allow you to crowd share or, I'm going from here to there. How many people from this locality are, and I'm willing to pick them up and then we go. Doesn't exist. Okay,
Yeah.
that's an Indian example.
Mm-hmm.
What about in the global north, where and Australia is part of the global north, as it were?
Mm-hmm.
What about the global north, where people consume excessive food and
Mm-hmm.
waste it? So you'll be startled to know this. There are fishing quotas in the European Union, which
Mm-hmm.
means when a trawler comes back into the dock, it should not have got more fish than it is allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
So what do these guys do? They throw the excess fish, which is now dead, over the side.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of sense is that?
Yeah.
You will observe this when you travel to the West.
Mm-hmm.
If you're served a tray of food, and let's say there's a sealed packet of preserve, a small one, and some pat of butter, and you ate only certain things, that sealed packet of preserve and the butter will be thrown. It's a thing with health and hygiene that the tray will be emptied out as is. And then 40% of the world is dying of starvation, and another, 50% of the world is being denuded to grow stuff, and you're wasting. At what proportion are you wasting processed food? Fish have been caught. Global West, on a daily basis, do I need to buy more than I need? When will mankind answer that question at an individual level? So, interesting data again. During COVID, the total amount of toilet paper that North America purchased, anticipating a toilet paper crisis. If stores close, we will not have access to toilet paper. 40 years worth of toilet paper was purchased during the COVID lockdown.
Oh my God.
Now I've got two questions there. Do you really need 40 years of toilet paper? And who are the guys who felled all those trees and were stocking 40 years of toilet paper? So there are producers who are stocking 40 years of toilet paper. There are consumers who are buying. And the best part of North American toilet paper is it must come from first use wood. That only gives the softness and the fluffiness that they like in their toilet paper. And to get that wood, they go to the northern reaches of Canada and they cut those trees. Now, capitalism answers to money the best. If you don't buy and the stock of toilet paper starts to pile up in the corporations, godowns, they will automatically cut production. So human action, from the litter we drop, which happens more in our countries than it happens in the West. From the litter we start to drop carelessly, which ends up in landfills. Non-segregation of garbage, which ends up in landfills. To the excessive consumption and waste that we see in the global north. It's all individual driven. Can be stopped.
Right. Another, action that comes to mind for an individual would, given what I've seen with my generation or with my peers, is fashion, and fast fashion has become like a really big thing now. So commodities are being disposed of very easily because everything is easier on the pocket now. So that is one other point that I would like to add on to, of course, whatever tips that you mentioned.
So with the generation in question, one of the things is wanting the latest gadget, the next version 3 months down the road.
Yeah.
Chuck this phone, get the next phone.
Yeah.
Then how are you disposing of the one that you disposed of? Is it ending up in a landfill is a question.
Yeah.
And so yes, fast fashion, yes, rapid wanting to update your devices. Yeah, these are all issues. Yes.
Okay. So my next question.
By the way, on fast fashion, the company to go look up is Patagonia.
Yeah.
Patagonia is a guy who tells you, don't come to my Black Thursday sale. don't buy the latest if last year's jacket is still okay for you.
Mm.
And you know the fun of that? The millennials loved that, so that they went and flocked to Patagonia.
Mm.
So you can be sustainable, make it a thing, and grow super fast.
Yeah.
Sorry, your next question.
No, no worries at all. So next question would then be surrounding the hope of in all of this, because to me it sounds very dire, and very hopeless, almost at times, because I myself have, delved into this topic quite a few times, in great depth, and have developed, as one would call it, eco anxiety. So how does one deal with it? Is there any hope for us? And any advice, any word of advice that you have for our listeners?
Eco anxiety, huh?
Mm.
Man, you can't get through a day without learning at least 5 new words. Yesterday, somebody said knowledge greenwashing,
Mm.
consulting greenwashing, education greenwashing,
Yeah.
credential greenwashing, pretending that you're equipped with sustainability skills when you actually are not.
Yeah.
So today's is eco anxiety. So the answer is actually lies in two extreme timelines.
Mm.
We should live like our forebears. They took from nature only what they needed for that day.
Yeah.
And they had less reason to do it. They had more insecurities.
Mm.
They didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow. Still, they
Mm.
took, despite that, they took from nature only that which they needed. Today, you live in a much more secure environment where if something that is essential to your life runs out, you can go next door and get it.
Yeah.
So, can you please wait for things to wear out
Mm.
and then replace,
Yeah.
than have wardrobes stuffed with so-called choice? So, one end of the time spectrum is living like our forebears.
Mm.
The native Indians in North America, the Aborigines in Australia, every single community that lived worshipped nature. All their gods were
Mm.
nature related gods. The other end of the spectrum is modern science. Live with nature, live with science. Science can solve everything, and living with nature can solve everything. So, one thing that living with nature will do for you is reduce your anxiety in absolute terms. Nature is a wonderfully healing thing.
Yeah.
So, live with nature, you'll feel better.
Mm.
Live with science, you'll head this off.
Right.
And it is living in this neither with your forebears habits nor with the scientific temper.
Mm.
Scientific temper includes segregating garbage, includes recycling water.
Mm.
Scientific temper includes doing all the common sense things.
Mm.
In this day, living in an apartment complex as I do, how close can I mimic my forebears?
Mm.
Do I do that? Have I done that? Do we throw carrot peels in the bin or do we use it for our terrace garden?
Mm.
That's scientific and being with Mother Nature at the same time. So if you don't have a terrace garden, you will have anxiety.
Mm.
Have a terrace garden, get those carrot peels, kill the anxiety.
Yeah. So there is some hope, I'm assuming.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. But the problem with hope is, I told you there is a bunch of people that think climate change is a hoax.
Yeah.
And there's another bunch of people who think climate change doesn't matter because science will solve it.
Yeah.
So right now, it's okay for 25 years
Mm.
to pretend that science cannot solve it and panic.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Mm.
It's okay to panic. You better panic than be complacent.
Yeah. I mean, that's how most millennials work, anyways, leaving things to the last minute. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I tend to leave things to the last minute. Right before the deadline is when I'll start, attempting to finish the task at hand.
So the millennials are the people who will live to see what happens 40 years from now.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we will be the ones who will be witnessing the wrath of nature, if we can call it that. So, my last question would be regarding climate change skeptics. We touched upon that a little bit already. We spoke about them and how there are some people who do not fully subscribe to the idea of climate change happening because of human activities. So, how can we convince them? How can we have a conversation with them without there being a deadblock in the conversation?
Okay, it's become very polemic. Society is, my version versus your version. If you
Mm.
want to cross that, if you want to cross that chasm, what you have to do is perhaps
Yeah.
somebody that lives in a very fancy place in a very fancy city of the world loves her Javanese coffee. You just need to tell them that Javanese coffee is going to become extinct because of these 6 factors.
Mm.
And so you want to head that off. You really love your Javanese coffee, head it off from here.
Okay.
And so then, from a marketing perspective, what that means is if there are 7.5 billion people on the planet and 10 million of those have a specific like, then to each segment of 10 million,
Mm.
find a narrative that a threat that talks to their likes
Mm.
and says, if you don't get this sorted, your likes will get wiped out.
Mm.
So you 10 million need to work on it.
Right.
But then that's a mankind level task.
Mm.
And I think that a mankind level task is something humans have done. It's always been one woman, one man, one person
Mm.
that brought in change on scale.
Yeah.
So yes, one person can do it. In a digital world, definitely yes. And maybe you and I will talk not in this conversation, but I have initiatives which are looking at the world in not lots of 10 million, but in lots of 1 million.
Okay.
Group size 1 million, that many million groups around the world. Otherwise, this is not going to get done.
Mm. Yeah, I think any size of that group would be important at this point in time, because of course one can only target so many people, the people around them specifically. If one can bring about change even in the thought processes of the people that they are surrounded with, that would lead to some significant impact for sure.
So, people like you and I should harness the democracy of the internet and reach out to people that are not actually in our physical space,
Mm.
but
Yes.
get this message through and get it through without being, you know, Greta Thunberg about it
Yeah.
or stop the oil as they are doing in London.
Yeah.
If you take that stance, they're gonna recoil and shut up.
Mm.
You got to be smooth about it, but deliver the message.
Yeah. That makes sense, because people usually have that idea of climate activists or people who are eco-friendly, that they are going to go all, pardon my French, but batshit crazy on them. But
No,
yeah.
so I hold the view. I hold the view, Divya, that this idea of Democrat versus Republican, left versus right,
Mm.
liberty versus libertarian, or liberal versus
Yeah.
neocon, the entire thing is fake. Okay, there might be a slice of 3% on that age and a
Mm.
slice of 3% of this age.
Yeah.
The majority of humanity just wants 2 square meals a day,
Mm.
and we should appeal to their good sense without sounding like either this fringe or that fringe, and this job can be done. So you
Right.
don't want to be climate loony if you want to talk to the climate space skeptic.
Got
You
it.
don't want to be climate loony.
Mm. That makes sense. All
And
right.
throwing paint at artwork and cream at artwork, I
Yeah.
think you're just driving them away.
Mm. That makes sense, because yes, I've heard a lot of people commenting the same way that you mentioned, that why are they destroying art, or is this not wasteful, etc. So I see that point of view as well. It makes sense. All right, Mr. Sushil, that was it for our conversation. It was lovely speaking with you and getting to know more in depth about climate change. I'm sure our listeners will enjoy it just as much as I did. And if you have any last messages before we end the
Well,
conversation.
I do hope you enjoyed it. I do hope you get your message out. And in a concluding note, I would say people like you should spread the message, but also act on the ideas that come out from such conversations
Hmm.
and go to town. That's the way change will happen. And so long as there are people like you that are looking at this with a serious pair of eyes, as you clearly are, I for sure have hope. Maybe I will then have those grandchildren after all.
I,
Thank you. Thanks very much
okay.
for having me over.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sushil, for your time.
Thank